Hello, this is Dr. Lee Hildebrand from Lakeshore Psychology Services in Mequon, Wisconsin, coming to you with my next YouTube video. And in this one, I want to approach a delicate topic, and that is, how do you cope with the loss of a narcissistic parent? Now, coping with any kind of loss can be very difficult with the death of a family member or a friend or another loved one. But adding on the element of a parent who's had a narcissistic personality or even those kinds of tendencies can be really difficult. Now, for those of you that are wondering or not that well versed in regard to narcissism, let me talk about some of the signs and symptoms of a narcissistic personality disorder. And this can vary person to person, but here's some of the characteristics that you might see. First, having an inflated sense of self-importance, a demand of having the best of everything. They may want the best house, the best car, think that things that they have is the best while not paying any attention to what's important to other people. Sometimes holding a sense of entitlement, mandating and seeking continual attention, which is called narcissistic supply. In other words, it's almost like an electrical device which seeks appreciation from others, others saying that they're special or significant, which is this supply of attention. It can also include expecting many people to acknowledge them as superior. They can be very easily jealous of other people, other people's accomplishments, be very critical of their accomplishments, or just straight up ignore other people's accomplishments around them, believing that others are jealous of them, of how special they think they are, and things of that nature. Another characteristic can be overvaluing their achievements, things that they've sought to accomplish or have accomplished, and thinking that everybody else is just in awe of what they've done. Now, often they can be distracted and focused on dreams of authority and triumph and perfection, thinking they're the perfect marriage partner, the perfect father or mother. And often they can take advantage of others in situations to their benefit. They can sometimes manipulate, tell mistruths, spin things in certain ways so that they end up and turn out looking really good while others around them do not look so good. They often expect special favors that align with what their expectations are and what they need, and oftentimes just think that they're overall superior to other people. You may see in situations when you're having conversations with this type of personality that it's often completely about them. They're not going to really ask you that many questions, and they literally can go on and on for hours about themselves, about what makes them special, about their perfectionism, and kind of dominating conversations and situations. And then they also have a characteristics of looking down on people that they don't think that are up to their par or that are inferior to them. So those are some generic overarching characteristics of someone that may demonstrate narcissistic personality disorder. So if you've had a parent that you feel like, boy, that really fits, many of those characteristics were evident. I've often thought that they may be have characteristics of being narcissistic, then it can be very difficult to be the child or even a friend of somebody that has a narcissistic personality disorder. Now, to have a parent with the characteristic and have the parent pass away, it can be incredibly painful on a number of levels. So I want to give a few guidelines on how to cope with and deal with this situation. First of all, it's important to allow yourself to have your own personal grief process. Not everybody's grief process is going to be the same. And there are certain theoretical guidelines. For instance, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has a theory that many have heard in their introductory psychology classes that talks about a sort of a progression of feelings from denial to anger, etc., all the way to acceptance. And that is not necessarily a linear pattern. People can feel all kinds of feelings in their grief process. I've noticed clinically and working with people for many decades that there's a whole variety, and different feelings can come at different times, and there's not an exact timeline. So first and foremost, allow yourself the personal grief process that goes with losing this parent. And if indeed you felt like there was some strong narcissistic tendencies, of course you have some wounds that have occurred in this relationship. They might not have told you consistently that they love you. It might have always seemed like they were trying to compete with you, or had exorbitant expectations upon you without really seeing you as the true person that you are and the nuances of who you are. So given this, it's important to understand that nobody, even somebody that has some narcissistic tendencies or full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, is all good or all bad. Sometimes these people can be incredibly charismatic, and they can guide and lead many things within the business realm or other realms, and make tremendous progress even though they have these characteristics in regard to how they relate to people and the insecurities that they have about themselves. So remember that nobody is all good and nobody is all bad. If you had a narcissistic parent, there are definitely some qualities or some situations that you had with them that you probably remember some fondness about. And it could be anything. Maybe they tried to express their love by buying you things, or they gave you certain attention when they took you on certain trips, or various other things that might have demonstrated the kind of their own way of expressing their love. Well, at the same time, you probably have some grief about things that were not good in that relationship, that you really are grieving what you didn't have. And it really can be a twofold process in grieving a parent that's narcissistic, because you're both grieving some of the positive qualities, and then you're grieving some of the things that you did not have as either a child or an adult child from this parent figure. So give yourself some grace in regard to that, and recognize that it's not contradictory for you to feel both of those, to miss the person, to miss certain aspects of the person, and simultaneously to really mourn that this parent did not give you some of the things that you really needed and yearned for. And both of those are okay. So take the time to remember and appreciate those positives, those situations that you did feel that were helpful, and then in turn allow yourself the opportunity to grieve the negatives, to grieve situations where you felt like you were neglected, or where your needs were put secondarily to the narcissistic parent's needs. Oftentimes they're going to think about themselves first and foremost, and to allow yourself to feel the sadness that comes in recognizing that. Now, sometimes there can be an aspect of feeling as a child of a narcissistic parent like you're crazy, and sometimes the parent will even say things that are dismissive of your feelings or of your experience about them or other situations. So please give yourself and find from other people that acknowledgement and that affirmation that your parents' limitations in their narcissistic tendencies are not a reflection of your limitations as their child. You can be an awesome daughter or an awesome son and still have a narcissistic parent who does not see the true value of who you are, or treat you in the way that would be appropriate and that you merit in regard to your inherent value and so many of the wonderful qualities that you bring. And sometimes children and adult children can feel a great sadness and feel shame, a sense that they're not enough because the narcissistic parent did not acknowledge them in these ways. So please understand that your value as a son or a daughter is not connected in this case to the limitations that this narcissistic parent had. In some ways, they really couldn't help themselves. There's a historic situation and a narcissistic wound where either they were neglected and hurt in some form or fashion, where they have taken on this approach to dealing with life and their insecurities in people, or they may have had a situation where they were told consistently by their own parents or other people that they were the bomb, that they were perfect, that they were the best, that they were the greatest, and that is sort of the narrative in which they can view the world, where they just kind of get habituated to thinking their thoughts are the most important, what they do is the most important. Hey, rest of the world, why aren't you treating me? Treat me as special as my parents set up things to be. So there's various scenarios that can be the origins of a narcissistic personality, and as that personality profile or those personality tendencies of thinking and feeling and insecurities move forward, the person just almost can't even help manifesting things the way they do in regard to trying to protect their greatest insecurities. Because believe it or not, a lot of narcissistic people seem very confident. You would not realize at all how incredibly broken and insecure they really are at their core. And they will go to great lengths to hide and mask this so that other people cannot identify or recognize it, so they can appear to be as special as they want you to think that they are. They're incredible actors and actresses in this regard. So understand that your perspective of this parent may be unique. There may be other people, coworkers, friends, employees, etc., of the narcissistic person that just think they are amazing, that they were so incredible. And a lot of times a narcissistic person will, in a strategic way, treat certain people reasonably well as long as they continue to give them that supply that they're the greatest. So you could run into those people, and they may be commenting even after the passing of this parent of how incredible they are. Don't think that you're crazy, that your perspective is unwarranted. It's just you saw a side of this parent as a child that many other people did not see. So understand that your perspective is unique, and that the difficulties that are there with a narcissistic personality are probably most intimately felt by their loved ones, by their spouse, by their children, and those kinds of relationships. So lastly, I think if you're dealing with and grieving the loss of your narcissistic parent, it's to really have compassion. To have compassion both for yourself in regard to what you're experiencing, and compassion for other people, for siblings. And even among siblings, each sibling sometimes has a different experience in regard to the narcissistic parent. Sometimes narcissistic parents are a little more tough on certain children than others. I've seen situations where narcissistic mothers can be much more difficult on their daughters than, say, their sons sometimes. Sometimes they can pick a son as a favorite and give special attention that way. And vice versa in regard to fathers and sons. And it varies. So have compassion, understand that your experience is unique, and just because it's unique does not mean that it's unwarranted. It does not mean that you're making a big deal out of nothing when you're experiencing the grief that you are. for the wounds that are there. Those are legitimate wounds that you have in regard to your life and dealing with that parent. And then simultaneously, don't think that that's the experience for everybody. Recognize that some of your other siblings, some others that were around that parent, had some different experiences, and they were different in terms of how they approached it potentially. Some people provide narcissistic supply in spades. They're good at it. They respond well because they like the narcissist being nice to them. They want something special from the narcissist. And so they're just going to continue to spoon feed the supply. And that relationship works really well together. You might have been more healthy than that. You might have recognized at a certain point that you didn't want to play the game anymore. You did not want to continue to provide this supply and allow the parent to continue to have the kind of insensitive reactions that they would, the self-centeredness, the control and manipulation that can go with being part of a narcissist's supply chain. So have compassion upon yourself in regard to this. Give true credence to what your feelings are and recognize that they're going to be nuanced. And you may very well at times feel sadness in missing the person, and at other times you may feel sadness about what you didn't get from that parent. Definitely, it's not easy to go through any kind of loss, and I recommend that if you're feeling some of this and you'd like some support, to look toward your most trusted friends, those that understood that the parent was a narcissist, that could really see that for what it is, that have some knowledge and experience about it. And then also help professionals, counselor, psychologist, like the staff that I have here at Lakeshore Psychology Services, people that can have knowledge about what you're going through, specific knowledge, and really help you with the grief process and coping through this. So I wish you well. Those of you that are walking through this experience or had this experience before, my heart goes out to you. I know that it is not easy, and I hope that my video today has been helpful. So feel free, if this was helpful today, to like my video or subscribe to my channel, a channel in which I seek to continue to provide videos that can add value to you and your family in regard to an approach to life that is not just surviving, but rather is thriving. Thanks so much for tuning in today.